Yes, it did. Alright, here we go. And welcome back, everyone, to another episode of The Final Cut, Catawba's #1 program for all theater-related topics here on campus. And with me today, I've got Dillon Reid. One of the... Dillon, introduce yourself.
Well, my name is Dillon Reid. I'm a history major who's working a lot with the theater department. I'm currently in a show, which is why I'm here. It's called Arthur Miller's Crucible. So it's very exciting. I'm glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you. Now, Dillon, why don't you tell the students a little bit more about yourself, like your involvement with the theater?
Well, even though I'm not a major or a minor, I do a lot of work over, we have a scene shop. I do a lot of work there whenever I can. I've been in a couple shows, most recently Legally Blonde, the musical last semester, and a 10-minute scene directed by a student. And I was also in the first year showcase when I was a freshman. So I'm acting a lot more with the department. I'm a huge fan of the department. So.
Being a history major, what inspired you to get involved with the theater department here?
Well, interesting enough, when I was a senior in high school, a member of the department at Catawba came to my high school and directed the musical we were in, Guys and Dolls. It was our first musical. It was my first ever time acting. So her name was Katie. She came from the Catawba community, and showed us the ropes a little bit, gave me a tour of the theater department, and I just fell in love with the space. I fell in love with the theaters. I fell in love with the attitude.
Would you say the environment's any different from you? I mean, not being a theater major. I mean, being a history major. Does it feel like do you feel right at home with them, despite not being a major, or?
The department is definitely a family, and even though I'm not a member of the department in full, I still feel very accepted. I may not know as much as the others in terms of formulaic acting, in terms of how to present myself, but they're all very helpful. They're all very cooperative. I'm very much a big fan of being able to work with them all.
All right. Now, the Crucible that you're part of, why don't you explain what the story behind it a little bit?
Well, The Crucible was written by Arthur Miller in the 50s. It was about the Salem witch trials, this big time when everyone was getting accused of being witches, which was a big problem at that time. And our director actually told us the story of why he wrote it. At the time, the big Red Scare was going on, where people were being accused of communists, of negotiating with Russia, and Arthur Miller himself was being investigated. So he said, you know what, I'm going to write this play. He wrote it as an allegory of both, the Salem witch trials and the communist scare. So it works as a story, as a plot, and as well as an allegory for his time in the 50s.
Now, what role do you play in this?
I play Marshall Willard. He's a hometown law enforcement in Salem.
All right. Why don't you describe his character a little bit more? I mean, how involved is this character in this play?
He's admittedly a pretty minor character, but he was very fun to research. He's based on the historical George Herrick, who was the Marshal of Salem at the time. He's just a normal guy he's just a normal law enforcement who's caught up in all of this mess, who doesn't know, should he obey his morals? Should he say a lot of this, is it wrong? Is it valid? Or should he just follow orders like he's been trained to do? That's his personal question. And I feel like, even though it's a minor character, I still want to get that across.
Well, in the way you described it, it seems like even though he is a minor character, there's so much more to it than he's just some minor character. He's like this officer of the law kind of character. It's just, there's so much depth with it, even being a minor character, I guess.
And that's the thing about The Crucible. Even though there are so many characters and they all have so much to them, they all have these years of life and development behind them, and it all comes through in a very subtle way in their dialogue, the way they carry themselves, and it's a very big challenge to be able to portray that, but I think we're all doing a very deliberate job in trying to get those lifestyles across.
Now, what type of production is this? I mean, is it a script reading? Is it
this will be a very straightforward production. This is going to be, much more like Your Life of Galileo, much more like your Huck Finn. It's going to be, we're going to have a very defined set, very defined costumes. It's going to be a very straightforward piece.
Now, what practice, have you had any classes, like any theater classes here at Catawba to help you prepare for something like this, or?
I have not had any classes, but I feel like throwing you into a musical as big as Legally Blonde is a lot, and Missy and our director Missy did a wonderful job in helping me, learn the professionalism, how to carry yourself when you're off stage and on. So I feel like being thrown out into the field like that did me a lot of good.
Would you say that you probably are at a disadvantage in at least those who are majoring in theater?
In a way, I guess you could say that, but from the teachers are doing a very clear job in helping me out there. And plus, I've been watching my fellow actors and seeing what they do and picking up little observations from them. And though I might not know a lot of the formulaic acting, I feel like, since a lot of acting is reacting, I feel like if I just feel the moment and understand the character, I should be able to pick it up okay.
Now, you mentioned that there's a lot of characters in this production. How many would you say there are?
20.
20? And that's technically large in terms of...
It's a very large production for a drama.
How so?
For example, the play we did earlier this year, References to Salvador Dali, had about, I'd say, 5 or 6 or 7 people. And that's, pretty standard for a small production like that, a small scale production like that. Whereas the Crucible, there are so many characters and they all have such big feelings and lives behind them. I think that's where it's such a big, grand, epic piece, because there's so many people. We are analyzing a town, really.
Oh. In terms of what would you say, what skills and abilities that you think you already had that helped you out in the process of, throughout this production, I guess, is just...
Being a historian who I do a lot of studying with colonial America and the post-World War II era. So I feel like I was able to dip into my understanding of both the Communist Red Scare and the Salem witch trials. I am a history major. I'm learning about colonial America. That's one of my specialties. So I feel like understanding the Puritan values, understanding the religious fervor of that time period, and understanding the hierarchy of the systems of, the provinces, the colonies versus England across the ocean. Understanding all this stuff really helped me in understanding my characters.
Now, even though there's a history behind, a history with your character and how there was depth, did you use that in preparation for this production? Did you say you got your role and then you went and researched him and found all this about him, about this one character?
I did a lot of that. When I found out my character's name was John Willard, I wrote that down, and in reading the script it said sometimes this character's named George Herrick in productions. So I Googled them both and combined a lot of their character traits. They both were law enforcement in Salem. One, followed orders, did exactly what he was supposed to do, didn't really give an opinion either way, whereas the other, John Willard, was openly against these witch trials, saying they were a load of nonsense, and he got himself killed for it. So combining these two historical figures, in both of these law enforcement people, into this one character is where a lot of the research took place. I was able to take a couple liberties here and there with it. Since I'm combining these characters that both had different opinions, what do I feel is my interpretation of the character?
Would you find that difficult? If one was so on one end and one was on the other, wouldn't you find it difficult to and to have them combined into one? Would you say you found it difficult to kind of bring that character out? Because, especially their feelings, their, the choices and the things they would say, did you find that difficult at all?
It is very difficult, and especially since my character is not a problem, but my character doesn't talk a lot. He takes a bailiff role in a lot of the scenes. He's in the back. It's mostly physical. So I'm able to use that as an advantage to give certain looks to people or to hold myself a certain way when certain events are happening. And you mentioned the combining of characters. I feel like these two men, since they don't mesh well, I'm able to reinvent them. I'm able, since I am playing a character in a play, I'm able to add, so George Herrick was the law enforcement, he followed the rules, John Willard didn't believe in it, so maybe we have an apprehensive guy who follows the rules but questions his own morality while doing it.
Now, this production is directed by Dr.
Corriher, yes sir.
What was it like? What has rehearsals been like with him?
Kurt is a very intelligent director. He understands the history and culture of these characters. He understands Arthur Miller's mindset very much. His focus, it's a lot of, we run the scene and then a lot of times we'll talk about it. We'll talk about why we've done certain things, or if it's a little sticky, we'll run it again. His focus is on understanding the characters and understanding the audience's relation to this play, because it's such a big, epic, dramatic piece. We want the audience to be able to feel the drama and be involved with it as much as they can, and that's been really Dr. Corrier's focus.
Have you ever been Have you ever been part of a production that's, say, been directed by had a student director?
No, I have not. Not really. Both of my productions. Well, actually, I have. Now that you mention it, I was in a 10-minute scene last semester, directed by my friend John Milbank. It was a very fun experience.
Now, what would you say the difference is between John Milbank and Dr. Kurt?
Well, both, engage their actors in different ways. John looked at it more as, okay, these are unique characters, these are very off-the-wall characters since we were doing a comedy. How do we convey that? How do we understand ourselves? He would often ask us when we say a line, all right, what does that line mean? Why did you say that? He wanted us to be able to paint that picture to the audience, to understand what we're saying so that they understand what we're saying. And in that way, Dr. Collier is identical. Since both consider themselves actors first, they direct as an actor would direct. Their focus is on the audience in relation to the actor, instead of, it's the relation to the actor and then the actor's relation to the script, and then the script's relation to the audience. So it's this both have this big focus on, does the audience understand what we're doing? And I think that's the most important part of putting on a production.
All right, great. Going back to how you say, you were saying about how Dr. Corrier is, how you guys run your lines, and if there's anything sticky, or you rerun it. Now, considering the fact of your character and kind of how you kind of had to portray him and kind of feel it out in that sense, would you say he's giving you kind of I'm gonna say more like a passive aggressive kind of feel to it, like you had this mindset, or at least you feel that he has this mindset, and you run it, but then you guys discuss it, and then if there's any changes, does he let you kind of develop the character on your own, or is it kind of like an involvement of both the director and the actor?
In a lot of ways, we came to this production with our own character in mind, with our own feeling, and he will tweak it if he doesn't feel it's translating right with the script. But for the most part, we are able to develop our own character, and since we feel it a lot more, we allow it to mesh with, the environment that we're around.
How are the rehearsals? The fun.
The rehearsals are long, but enjoyable. A lot of us, we don't have to be called. It goes from 7 to 10 every night, and if we're not called in the first few scenes, we just come in at 8. He doesn't make us stay there if we don't necessarily need to. Though they do run long, it never feels unnecessary. Like if we're there for 3 hours, it's because we had to be there for 3 hours. He's never very aggressive about things he wants to change or things he wants to have us do. It's always, we have to be here, we have to get what we need to get done, and if we get done early, we can go home.
What would you say one of the challenges have been through this production?
The biggest challenge in this production so far is being able to translate what my character represents to the audience. And I feel like a lot of my fellow actors might agree with that. It's very difficult to take Arthur Miller's words because they're brilliant words and they're also very heightened words, very strong, developed language, and be able to put ourselves in the mindset and translate that to the audience. Like, what I'm saying is not how I would talk, but it's how my character would talk. So I need to believe what I'm saying and present that to the audience so they believe what I'm saying.
Now, why would you guys find that difficult to do? Or as, I guess as one of the biggest challenges so far?
Well, in comparison to Legally Blonde, I was talking in, very modern day English, hi, how are you, that sort of stuff. Whereas in the Crucible, it's colonial Middle English. So this is difficult language. Wherefore appears in the script once. And, the dialogue is so different from how I would talk that I have to understand that I'm not just saying lines, I'm speaking, I'm communicating. And that's been the hardest part for me, at least.
Would you say that you're, say, you being a history major and all, would you say that's giving you some kind of advantage in any sense in this production?
In a way, it gives me a different outlook, I feel. My friends are coming, my fellow actors are looking at it, and they're understanding their characters. I'm looking at it as I'm understanding a mindset. And they're doing this too, but I don't want to down-talk them in any way. We're both, the way I'm going about it is, how would a Puritan marshal in the 1600s understand his environment? They consider it, how would, for example, Reverend Paris understand his environment? They're looking at it from a character standpoint, whereas I'm looking at it from an environmental standpoint. Both are perfectly valid. There's a little bit more so because they are trained actors. But this gives me not a better outlook, not by a long shot, but a different outlook, I feel.
I'm gonna say, what are the, I understand each production has its challenges, its fun times. Why don't you name some of the, if any, some of the good times you've had so far during your rehearsals? How about some interesting?
Interesting times. Let me think without getting in trouble here.
Oh, come on. You're safe here.
Yeah, I'm safe here. This is going to go on the internet. Let me think. There was a time when, no, let me think.
You don't have to use names. You could just say,
obviously,
like this person.
There was a friend of mine who had this line, and it was a very difficult line, so he just said it, like, he got the line wrong, he realized he got it wrong, so he said it like 5 times in a row in different ways. Like, where are you? Why are, he just said it in like 5 different ways, and before you know, the director was also laughing. That's a beautiful moment. It's such a heightened script, it's hard to get the lines down, that we have to say, me especially, have to second guess myself. And, okay, here's my favorite. There's a scene where I come in and I slam on a bench to wake someone up. I got bruises on my hand from slamming on this bench. Like, wake up, come on. And I got like a couple bruises on my thumb. So.
Yeah, by the sounds of it, it sounds like it's just not work, but it's also fun in the process of creating something like this.
And the word you use is creating, and I feel like that's the best word to describe it with. We are creating a world where we're inviting the audience in, and that's the most fun part of any production to me. Like, we establish this world and we let you in.
Would you say it's hard to keep the audience kind of like hooked into this world that you guys have created?
And in honesty, that has been a little bit of a concern, since this play is a very heavy, dramatic, heightened play. It'll be hard to keep the audience's interest, but that's where we come in. That's where we as actors have to buckle up and say, okay, what can we do? How can we read these lines? And Kurt's been there Dr. Collier's been there every step of the way to help us. If we're doing something wrong, we can come talk to him. I've talked to him several times about things that he could be doing better. It's the difficult part, is keeping the audience in tune with this big play. But I feel like you guys are going to be really involved when we get it done.
Yeah, that's good. I would say, and that's what I've enjoyed of every production so far this semester is, just the involvement and just each scene, or each little one that passes by just keeps me wanting more. I'll admit, references to Salvador Dali, that ending, I swear, it's like, why did you end? It's like it just ended right there. It's like, well, that's it?
Where's the rest of it?
I know. I mean, same thing went for Once on this Island. It's just, I mean, I don't know. It's just, it kept me hooked. I mean, for me, just being an art lover, regardless of what form it may be, music, theater, you know, it's every single one of them's kept me interested in some way, shape, or form. I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's just the atmosphere, I guess, that it creates. It almost makes me feel like I'm there. I'm just observing through, you know, almost like when you're in, like, think of it as a dream. You know, you're like putting on this dream or this production, and you're just viewing it from this outside perspective. So I mean,
and that's been one of our focuses. That's been one of our focuses in the Crucible. Is since we're not, it's not really, it's a very character-based story, but since there's so many characters, you can look at it. This is the town. This is the town falling apart. This is them, how they deal with this problem. We're looking at the whole aristocracy and the whole working class of this town at the same time, from the most powerful man in the entire province, Deputy Governor Danforth, to the lowliest slave, Tituba, in the house of Reverend Paris. We see everyone's reactions. We immerse you in this huge, torn environment. And I know every night after rehearsals, like, I want to go research more and feel this world even more.
No, being that it deals with, you know, maybe with like the Salem witch trials, would you say there's a lot of, like, I'm gonna say maybe some prejudice issues, or maybe some sexist or biased issues that you guys deal with in this production?
There is this sense that, and Arthur Miller did this on purpose, and the Salem witch trials, this is very historically sound, it's the upper class versus the lower class. The lower class is being scapegoated. You know, you got your slaves, you got your homeless people, they're being thrown in and saying, these people are witches, these people are witches, we can blame these people. And you're slowly starting to work up the ladder until reverends find themselves accused. And that's one of the major points of the play is, and that's when it comes in with the communist ties, no one is safe when everyone's getting accused.
No, I mean, being that, you know, you deal with slaves, you know, I mean, all these biased topics, and maybe some that are taboo, some that are not. Would you say that there's any, like, precautions, that even though it was done on purpose, is there, like, any, I guess, I want to say precautions, if maybe, like, for people to deal with these issues, like, with these concepts? I mean, would you say that you guys have to, like, be careful in what you say, especially if the lines may be racially biased or be prejudiced or so on and so forth?
In a couple cases I can think of, there's a bit sexist, there's a tiny bit of sexist or racist overtone, but since we're not saying it, our characters are saying it, and they believe it. So we have to just throw ourselves in there and say, I may be uncomfortable with what I'm saying, but I still have to say it. I still have to believe it. I need to feel it. So that's when an actor removes himself from his character and the character says it. So if a character calls a young girl a whore, and that's a line, we have to understand, I'm not saying that. My character is. And I think the audience will understand that as well.
Yeah, but I mean, there are those who, I'm just saying, who may take it, or may be offended by it, more or less. Just, you know, I mean, and I'm sure you would just hope that, or you just come to expect that the audience would be kind of, I mean, I hate to even be kind of insulting in this, but, you know, mature enough to deal with these concepts and with what your characters have to say.
And the thing is that it's interesting you bring that up, because this entire play is it's a beautiful, fantastic work, but it deals with such dark and uncomfortable topics sometimes, and it doesn't use that to a shock value. It will say, this was a terrible thing that was happening. This is a very uncomfortable, very dark, very grim time, but it happened. How did they deal with it? How did Reverend Paris accept it? How did the slave accept it? How did the marshal accept it? So we're looking at these characters in response, they're responding to this very dark, very admittedly grim period in American history.
I can just imagine it. Just, you know, being a reverend and just be like, accusing me, you blasphemer, just like throw the book at you.
There's nothing you can say if you're accused.
It's like, here, I'll just put a cross right here, be like, back away, blasphemer. You're like, ow, hot. It's like, liar. Man. But yeah, I mean, that's what I love about these plays, just the topics, that, even though ranging from the extreme taboos to just maybe something really, you know, something every day, like this whole upper and the whole upper, middle and lower class stuff. To such taboos such as racial slurs or racism, slavery, and all these other dark things. So I mean, I guess if anyway, that's what I love about, I guess, how cultured these productions can be. It's just that, you're able to bring this, this dark, tabooish culture and be able to express it without having to, really go to these extremes, like, like you were mentioning how it's not you who's saying it, it's just your character who's saying it.
That's right.
Man, gotta love the theater reps. That's all I
love
guess. Definitely. Let's see. Man, coming up with questions is just so, especially with something like this, just going so in depth, and it's just like, man, you pretty much just like, I asked one question, you pretty much just answered like a million others. So it's like, well, cross you out.
Done that one,
Okay.
done that one, done that one, done that one, kind of did that one, did that one.
Yeah. So the only question is like, think of other questions that you haven't asked. Well, I know you pretty much answered every other question I could
Do
probably.
you have any questions for yourself, Mr. Reid?
Yes. Do you have any questions for yourself, Mr.
That's your job.
Come on, you can be. Hey, think of it as role play. You can be the reporter. It just.
Ask my questions for me, Mr. Actor.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm a historian. Come on.
Well, better wait. So, do you think anyone who isn't a theater major would be at any disadvantage in being part of this crew, or being part of this theater department?
The department has always had, even from its foundation in the 20s, I believe, it has always had, it has always espoused the belief that everyone, we are inclusive, everyone can be a part of the magic that is theater.
And there we go with another history lesson from our great Dillon Reid.
We have always, the thing is about the way we do things, from what I personally interpret, the way I've always interpreted the department, we feel the moment. We create environments, we understand characters. You don't have, and though it does give you an advantage, you don't really have to know a great deal about, the Alexander technique. And though these two things are wonderful to know, and they will help people in their longer scheme of life, I feel like the way the department is designed is the directors do so much hands-on work that anyone can come in that has a love for the department and be a part of it.
That was it. Speaking of which, speaking about the family and gaining stuff from it, what's the family like? This whole theater department. What would you say is the best quality that you've seen, or being part of the theater family? What's the best thing about it?
There's this great stigma about actors is that they're snooty and they separate people and they're isolationists. From the very first day I walked into this department, a young history major who had been in one play, I felt like I'd known these people for years. These people, they brought me in and they made me part of who they are. There is no snobbiness, almost no arrogance, no I'm better than you. This divaism that they've been warning us about, I've never seen it. These people, they're just like you and me. Actors are people too. And it's just such a loving and supportive and strong environment. And that's how I feel like I can, as a non-theater major who doesn't know the darndest thing about acting, can come in and feel like I kind of know what I'm doing.
Could you confidently say that this could be like your family away from your immediate family, or your like Catawba family almost?
Definitely. These people are my extended family. They're my friends. They're my co-workers. I adore every last one of them. Even the professors. We are on a first name basis with our professors. You'll never hear someone come up and say, "Hi, Professor Pulliam." No, that's Dave. There was a moment, one of the first times I auditioned, the last semester's audition, I auditioned for Rosencrantz and Guildenstern for Dr. Homan. And after the audition, it was at dinner, I believe, she came up and said, "Hey, how you doing?" I said, "Hello, Dr. Homan." And she looked at me like, I have never heard someone call me Dr. Homan in some 20, like she didn't say this, but I could feel it. Like, she did not expect to be called Dr. Homan. She expected to be called Beth.
Did she give you that look like?
More like, what? That's a name I've not heard in some time. I have a doctorate, that's right. But in all seriousness, being on a first name basis with our professors, it shows that supportive and loving and close-knit environment.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I would say I'm envious of you guys because I mean, the business department and the communication department, it's getting there, but it's still, we still address our professors by doctor or professor. So but I mean, even in the sorry guys in the music department, but even when it comes to that, I mean, I don't think you would ever. I mean, the way you've described it, in the way past actresses have come in here and explained this extended family here at Catawba, especially in the theater department. I mean, you can't find. I don't think you could find what you guys have anywhere else. And I would have to admit, I'm actually envious of that.
I mean, even in other theater departments, from what I understand, the performance majors don't talk to the non-performance majors, even though they're both theater. But here, it's such an open feeling. I mean, we have 2 shows going on this semester where a non-theater major, a non-departmental, is in a major role. The other one is my friend Cole in Once on This Island. And I'm, history and secondary education in the Crucible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and it's great to know that it's just anyone who is, it doesn't matter, it's not dependent on their major, that they can be part of something like this.
And don't get me wrong, having acting classes does give you a very big advantage. It does help you really understand what you're doing. So I couldn't just swagger on in there and say, I'll be playing John Proctor now, how you doing? That wouldn't fly. And it's all based on, do you understand? And I'm not saying that anyone can do this stuff. It's very taxing, very difficult stuff, but it's so rewarding. And, of course, if you take theater classes, you're going to understand this a lot more. You're going to know your craft. But just being among theater majors, just watching them, observing them, does help.
Now, let's just say if no one was interested in being part, they didn't want to do the performance or, maybe even help out with whatever else that they could be involved with. How else can they get involved with the theater department outside the productions?
If you know your way around a saw, if you know your way around a Fresnel light, if you know your way around a paintbrush, we might could use you at the scene shop. We've got a lot of people working very long hours to get these shows on the road, but if you don't understand any of that, in fact, that could be a very dangerous option. Don't do that unless you really know what you're doing. Forget I said anything.
Power drill.
Power drill for kids. Forget I said. Don't do that. It's scary. The best way you can support the theater department is just come see the shows. Even if it's a Blue Mask show, pay the $4. It's worth it. Just when we look out, my favorite part of any show is to look out. When I have a moment, just glance out. Like in Legally Blonde, when I'm standing there in a courtroom, looking out beyond the fourth wall for just a second, break character for just a second, see those hundreds of faces just laughing and singing along and just grooving to the music. Or when I'm in a dramatic role, and I glance out into the audience and see people just on the edge of their seat, just so enthralled. That is what actors exist for. That is where actors, from what I see, that's where we live and that's where we breathe. It's just come see the shows, support us. We're here to entertain you, and you want to be entertained.
Yes, we do. I'm gonna say, why don't you explain to the audience more about the Blue Mask organization here on campus?
The Blue Mask is different from the theater department. It's the theater department is your academic structure. The Blue Mask is the club. So anyone can be a member. Just pay I believe it's $8 in the fall to the Blue Mask treasurer, and you can be a member. You get to come to the picnics we have. You get to come to the award ceremony. We have a banquet every Christmas where we have little performances, and anyone can be a part of the shows if you audition and you're good enough. That was mean of me, but like I'm good enough for them. I mean,
Ray, look, he's already looking down to us. The rest of us.
I'm an actor now. God help me, I'm trying. But I mean, the Blue Mask is, the club. That's where the family portion comes in. We have a board that knows what they're doing, and they work so hard to keep everything organized. And we have these big, wonderful meetings. And for the first time I've ever experienced in a meeting, the Madam President of the Blue Mask raised her hand and says, "Motion to close." I have never seen a club motion to close something. And like 8 people raised their hand and said, "Seconded." I was like third. So
10th.
what they said. So I mean, it's just this beautiful, beautiful club that everyone should be a part of.
Now, what would you say would be another way of supporting, like, just the department, in a way, the department itself? I mean, even though it's a club, which you've explained, it's just, I mean, it's still part of, I mean, it's kind of like an extension of the theater department. So
Yes.
in a way, would you say that it still helps benefit, or I guess a better way, it's another way of students being able to support?
Just to come in and join the club and sharing your love of theater and paying the $8, getting yourself a t-shirt out of it. If you pay a little bit extra, I think it's 20 or something, I think 15, I don't know, I'm not the treasurer, you have to ask the treasurer. But just being a member of the club and coming to the meetings and coming to the events, you're gonna have so much fun. And that's the way to support the club other than coming to see the shows, is we have fun when you have fun. So just coming in, enjoying yourself, we'll enjoy ourselves right with you, and you'll make friends out of it. So come join the club if you have any love of theater.
I mean, and I guess, heck, even if it's just, even if it's musical theater.
Yeah.
Heck, I mean, heck, I'll admit, well, I don't know if this is official yet, because I haven't gotten any confirmation on this, but technically, I've sent my dues in recently, so yours truly is.
Congratulations.
Thank you, even though it's like a month away from the end of the
Welcome
year.
to the fold. You'll pay $8 to get in the fold.
Or who knows, maybe some other way. We never know. Or I never know. But real quick, you mentioned back how being part, like not being a theater major, being a history major, and how just being involved with the theater department has somehow allowed you to develop like skills or abilities that you said would extend like later on in your life.
Yes.
Now, how would you say that? I mean, like, why don't you provide some examples as to like how, like I guess better yet saying, how has being part or involved in the theater, not being a theater major,
But just working with the theater.
yeah, but just working with them, helped you say develop the skills to help you with your life later down the road?
Well, being an outsider of the department, and here I am speaking for the department, I feel like I am able to find my way into other organizations, to understand what they expect of me, and juggle that with what my home life and my history expects of me. So to be able to, blend both of those loves, and here I am speaking for a department I'm not even a member of, I feel like, just learning your way to fit into an organization, without getting, I'm not getting paid for any of this, obviously, but still understanding that my responsibilities are my responsibilities. I feel like the Blue Mask has taught me responsibility, that I do have to be there 7 o'clock, actually 6:50 every night for rehearsals. I have to be there, I have to expect to be there for Legally Blonde, for example. If rehearsals closed at 10:30, I had to expect to be able to be there till 11:30. They say in the theater department, if you're 10 minutes early, you're about 5 minutes late.
Yeah.
So just understanding your obligations, I feel like being a part of that community has taught me so much about responsibility.
And that's basically the best thing you could possibly expect to get out of something like this. Now, have you ever, I mean, I don't usually ask this question, but I mean, I'm kind of interested in knowing that you're just, you're involved but not a major. Have you ever been part of a strike?
A strike, if you're in the show, you gotta come to strike. Those, you'll hear them. I don't think I'll get in trouble for talking bad about strike. Strike, for those of you who don't know, is when we tear down the set. Like when, after the show on the final night, we're all like, yay, curtain call. Everyone change out of your costumes and tear this thing apart that we've been building for the past 6 months. Have fun. And we do it in a single night. Strikes can last 3 o'clock in the morning, and when you've got a power drill in your hand at 3 o'clock in the morning, you kind of gotta stay awake.
It's like, or else we actually would probably be playing Operation here.
Well, Dillon fell off a ladder again.
Yeah,
what are we gonna do about that?
Onto a power drill.
But it's never an unsafe environment. They always, we always have to talk before, Professor Zink and Craig and Dave all get together and say, remember, this is a construction zone. Be careful, be aware, and the rule is, the rule I've always seen, since I've had to obey this rule quite a few times, if you don't know how to do something, ask. Please ask. We don't want to end up with a buzzsaw between your eye because you don't know how to turn the thing on.
And with you just saying that, I'm kind of curious. I don't mean.
It's never an unsafe environment. I always feel very safe there.
I mean, if you're saying if you don't know how to do something, ask. And you've had to abide by this, the way you just.
I don't know what I'm doing. I'm sitting here representing an entire department that I'm not even a part of. I don't really honestly know what I'm doing when it comes to a lot of this stuff. That's why I do a lot of volunteering at the shop so I can learn. It's all about learning, and I've never experienced such an environment where Dr. Collier, I don't know how to read this line, what do you think I should do? And he'll tell you what you should think about. Or I don't know how to change there's a great story. I was volunteering for a show, I believe it was Legally Blonde, and I came up to Professor Dave Pullingham. I said, Dave, I don't know how to change this drill bit. He said, okay, and he took it from me and he undrilled it and then took it out and he said, there you go, and that's how you change a drill bit. Now, because I'm evil, he put it back in, turned it back in, and handed it back to me and watched me do it.
And did you do it?
I did it.
All right.
And it's a hands-on learning environment, and even though we have 7-foot saws there, exaggerating only slightly, I have never felt like I was in any physical danger, because in an environment like that, safety first. And what's an unsafe thing to do? Go in without knowing what you're doing. And people can attest to this. I've asked them 30 million questions. Like, excuse me, let's say zinc, what are we doing here? They're going to be putting primer on this workbench. Okay, what's primer? Oh, it's a type of unique paint mixture. Okay, what's a paint mixture? It's where you mix paint. What's paint? What's a brush? And I'll ask 30 million questions and they all get answered.
And then, hey, it's the best way to learn.
And I have never heard them say, oh my God, you're an idiot, you don't know what primer is.
Well, at least not to your face.
Not to my face. I'm looking at you, professors. Nah, they're fine.
It's like, they're all fine. Answer your questions and turn and be like, he doesn't know how to paint, or he doesn't even know what paint is, or a brush for that matter.
God help him, he's trying.
Yes. God, Lord, watch over him.
There's this great story. My friend Tommy last year, he said, all right, I've been volunteering for a long time. He said, okay, Dillon, I want you to go get me a C-clamp. I said, okay, C-clamp. I know what that is. I'm so I can do this. I can do this. So I ran off to the shop and I got him what I needed and I came back and I said, here you go, Tommy. And he said, Dillon, though I appreciate the effort of you bringing me a C-wrench, I asked for a C-clamp. But he didn't call me an idiot to my face, so that's how you learn. That's really how you learn, and we do pick at each other sometimes.
But it's all in, I'm assuming it's all in good fun.
It's all in good fun. We don't insult each other often.
Or if we do, it's all in the spirit of fun.
It's all in the spirit of fun. So.
I'm gonna say, do you ever find it? With the few productions that you've probably been on strike for, do you ever find it depressing? All that work that's put into it, into developing the scenery and all that, and then having to tear it down all in that one night.
I feel like you really hit the nail on the head there, pun intended, about this thing I've been building for the. Don't roll your eyes at me. This thing. Oh, Dylan made a pun. This thing I've been building for the past 4 months. I now have to tear it down, and it's very symbolic to me. Like the show's over. We're tearing it down. It's over. It's going to be a bare theater by 4 o'clock. It's heart-wrenching at times, but at other times, we're moving on to something new. Someone new is going to be inhabiting the space. Now, Jesse Syek and Robin Tynes, their show is over, and now we bring in, Eric English and Penn Chance to do their thing. So it's a new show, it's a new cycle, it's a new feeling, it's a new everything. And I feel like Strike really represents this change to move on to something brand new, a new experience.
Yeah, because just putting in all that effort, and then it's like you get to the days where you're showing, you get the productions running, then you hit that last night, and then you have to tear it all down. It's almost like that feeling like you just. I'm not speaking for the department in any way.
Neither am I, but here I am.
Yeah. I would find it just like, it's like, man, it's like I don't want to do it because I just want that presence to still be there.
I want to still feel it.
Yeah.
And that experience we share as actors is where that resonates. Like, I know you sometimes when you come into a theater major area and you shout, oh my God, they're going to yell at you and say, don't ever sing that. But in their heart, they know. I loved what I did there. They'll deny it, and they'll probably hurt me for saying that, but hey, it's a shared, in all seriousness, it is that shared experience that we feel as actors. We bond, we connect with each other, and we connect with an audience, and we learn while doing it. And I think that's the one thing to take away from a show. It was a good story, but I've made a lot of connections along the way, and I've entertained some people while doing it.
And knowing you, I'm pretty sure they were fully entertained.
Yeah. Did you see Legally Blonde?
Yeah,
that was fun.
Yeah, it was, I'll admit. I mean, just to knock that set down, I mean, it's just like, man, it was, I mean, even the thought was going to, even through the Salvador Dali and all just the small, even in FPC being as small as it is, it's just like, man, it must suck having to tear this down, just in the sense of, it's like, you've been here, you're performing, you're almost living it. You're almost like, just experiencing all of this here with everything around you, and then...
And don't get me wrong, I talk about Strike as being this bonding experience. Strike sucks, and I hate it. It's not fun to tear down this stuff at 2 o'clock in the morning, right? It's like we don't even have a break. It's like the show ends, Strike starts. You have 5 minutes to say hello to your family and thank you for coming, and then you do the Strike. It's hard. It's very hard work. But... it has to get done, and it's worth it in the end because we get to move on to a new show.
Well, I mean, does it necessarily have to be that same night? I mean,
there are reasons why it is that I won't go into on a recording, but there is reasons. We do have to get that stuff done so we can, in seriousness, we do have to get that stuff done so we can move in the new stuff.
Right. I mean, do you guys move in the new, like, for the upcoming production following that, the one you just tore it down for? Does it, like, I'm going to get placed up? Or is it just slowly over time?
It's slowly over time. After Strike, you have a bare theater to start over. The lights get changed. You talk to the set designers and the directors, and you start working. You start painting the set. You start building the props, and those get slowly filtered in as time goes on. And by the end of the few months, you have a new set, which will be gone in the night.
Would you say there's that many props used in this production, or?
There's going to be I haven't seen the props list yet, but I imagine there's going to be quite a few props, a couple lanterns here and there. The costumes are going to be gorgeous. I mean, we got some really brilliant costume designers working. So I'm really excited. I'm really excited to see the costumes. I can't wait.
I'm excited just to see this. I mean, even though, you being just having a minor part in this, it's very exciting to just, the depth in which, even though playing a minor role, not even being a theater major, and
that's the thing. I feel immersed. I feel like when, Kurt says, all right, lights up, I'm no longer Dillon Reid, the second-year history major at Catawba College. I'm 35-year-old Marshal John Willard, whose town is falling apart. That's how immersed I feel. That's how I felt in Legally Blonde. That's how I felt in the first year showcase. And that's how I felt in John's 10-minute scene, even. I'm no longer a person. I'm a dog now. That's what I got. I played a dog. And John was great with that. I'm a dog now. Kara's a bear. Morgan's my owner. Those two, that's a cop. And that's an environmental officer. Boom, here we go.
And being a dog, you knew all of them just like that.
Yeah, I did. I just loved everything. That's not a table. That's a trash can.
All right, in that case, here, I'll just throw this on it.
It's a trash can.
Oh, wait, sorry.
Over the place. Oh, you dropped it on the floor.
Damn, hit the rim.
Clean that up later.
All right, well, Dillon, thanks again for being on the show and taking your time to give us some good, just in-depth information to your character and to the upcoming production of the Crucible. Okay, is it the Crucible or the Crucible?
Crucible.
Civil, okay. Well, I don't know why, for some reason I want to say Crucible.
Crucible. There was a case, I always pronounce things weird anyway, like I called references to Salvador Dali, references to Salvador Dali. For really, like Salvador Dali.
Yeah.
Galileo, it's just, I say things weird, naturally.
Same here.
It's not.
Whatever. Well, everyone, you can catch this very, in-depth.
Deep is the word.
Yeah.
Heavy.
Deep, dark. I'm going to throw dark in there just because of deep, dark, and heavy production.
But beautiful. It's a wonderful show.
Okay.
Don't call this show dark. It's good.
Did I say it was bad?
Don't scare them. You want to see it. You really do.
You don't want to see it because Michael Jackson, his ghost, is gonna be. And
Okay.
Oh, this is why you don't want to bring your children. You know, God knows you'll see something fly across the stage that's not supposed to be.
What?
I don't know.
What are you talking about?
I think
You've lost control of your metaphor there.
Was it supposed to be a metaphor?
The show runs from April 9th through the 13th in Hedrick Little Theater, the same place you saw Galileo, and the same place you saw Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Alright, Dylan, thank you for being on
Thank
the
you
show.
so much, Tyler.
And everyone, I mean, words enough are even can't. There's no words. I'm speechless. I mean, it's just there's no words just to describe the fact that you should just go see this. And I'm telling you, you guys will not regret.
I'm sitting here in rehearsals like, wow, I can't wait to see this show. Oh, wait.
You're in
it. And I know the script frontwards, backwards, and sideways by now.
Well, do you know like the back of your hand?
I don't even know the back of my hand.
Well,
I don't even know what I'm talking about anymore. We should wrap this up before we start falling apart even more.
Alright, well, everyone, the Crucible, April 9th to the 13th in Hedrick
Little Theater.
And definitely was something I would recommend seeing since it's the second to last production.
No, it is the last.
Oh yeah, sorry, it is the last.
Other than the one act festival, which you should see as well, but this is our last main stage of the year.
So,
Semester.
everyone, make plans. You got 5 days. Go see it. And this is DJ Hattrick signing out. Later. Wanna say bye?
So goodbye, everyone. Fare thee well.
Well, I don't know. Can they hear?
I just waved to a microphone.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. Can they hear this?
I think so. All right, thank you, everyone.
Later.